Whenever we're learning a language, we have a filtration process that we go through. Basically, let's say I'm learning Greek and I get a word from Greek. I bring it into my head, and once it's in there, I look up maybe some information on the internet and interpret it into English. So I now know what that word is, and then it spits out. We do this with a lot of things. We do this with vocabulary, we do this with pronunciation, we do this with grammar, we do it with a lot of things. And what makes a truly good speaker of a language are those speakers who are able to get rid of that filter, that what they say in their target language or the second language that they're learning doesn't go through the filter of their original language. And in today's video, I want to focus on what I might call the Russian filter, where Russian speakers make a lot of common, I wouldn't say they're mistakes, but common things when speaking English that sounds a little bit off to an English speaker, though they could be grammatically correct. Now, in this video, I'm not going to be talking about mistakes and errors or anything like that. I've already done a video about that. This is more about how you can start feeling English and what you can do when it comes to the English language to actually think in a different way and set your focus in a different way so you can start moving on that path forward. Hi, my name is Dave. Welcome to Dave's English. And if you ever want to take lessons with me, just go to my website, davesenglish.com, where I can help you with your English learning needs. And also, if you find this video beneficial, as well as the others, please subscribe. Please go ahead and hit the little bell and also support the channel by doing a super chat and helping out. Any little bit helps to make sure that this channel gives me the motivation to keep on going to help you with your English learning needs. I primarily work with Russian speakers. Now, if you are not a Russian speaker, yes, this video might help you as well, because some of the things that I mentioned in this video might be beneficial to you as well and give you a lot of information. But with that being said, this is primarily for Russian speakers because that's who I work with mostly. And one of the things I know is that a lot of Russian speakers will put something through a filter where when they say something in English, it might sound correct, but it doesn't sound right. And today what I want to do is I want to change the way in which you think about English or approach English or focus in particular areas of English so that you know kind of what sounds right to us and what might sound a little bit different. So we're going to mention 5 things that can help you move forward in your English language journey by just getting rid of that filter and start feeling the language by making these adjustments. The first thing I want to talk about is how English is a very verb-heavy language. Now, this is important because a lot of people might come from what I would call a noun-heavy language, where if you want to say something, you might have to change the noun a lot. Like when I was in Russia, I didn't know how many ways you could say mermance, because in English it's mermance. You don't change the ending or anything. It's just always mermance. But in English, we have a lot of tenses. And this is why we have a very verb-heavy language. We don't do anything with the nouns. A car is a car. We might add an S to indicate that it's plural, but that's it. When it comes to our adjectives, we don't have gender, and it doesn't need to agree with number. So we don't do much with adjectives as well. But when it comes to verbs, that's where all the magic and everything changes. And for a lot of students of English, particularly Russian students, they will say something as a noun when maybe saying it as a verb would be better. So let me give you an example. So a speaker might say, podcasts help me with my speech. Now, this is a grammatically correct sentence, but usually a speech is something that is given formally. So a politician gives a speech or an important person gives a speech, whereas it would sound more correct to put the focus on the verb and say, podcasts help me speak. So we have now changed speak to a verb. And as you can see, we also clean up the sentence. The sentence is a lot shorter as well. Something we'll talk about later in this video. Another example, I had to make a call to my friend. We can just simply say, I called my friend. So you can see that longer sentence, we just shorten into a small sentence, put the verb focus on call instead of saying a call, which would have been a noun, and really cleaned up and shortened that sentence. Another example, we had a discussion about my work. Again, you can take a discussion, make it a verb because to discuss is a verb. We discussed my work. Again, shorten the sentence, made it a lot cleaner. So you can see in all of these situations, we made this transition from taking something that's a noun to actually putting it as either a main verb or a secondary verb in our sentence. It made the sentence shorter and it made it a lot cleaner. And these types of shifts will definitely help you sound more natural when it comes to English. So if you want to start thinking in the way that we think about how important a verb is compared to the nouns. The second thing you want to do is feel comfortable with the verb to be. So a lot of Russian speakers will either use a different verb, or if the verb to be is required in some situations, not use it at all. So for example, somebody might say, I am located in Chicago, when you can just say, I am in Chicago. But we can just use the to be verb because it is a description of where you are. I am in Chicago. So try to start feeling more comfortable with the to be verb. Now, this isn't just being comfortable with the to be verb in situations where you're just replacing another verb. This is also the case when you're using, let's say, phrasal verbs that have to be. Instead of saying, I am not working today, you can say, I am off. I am off today. So that would be using to be with the phrasal verb. Now you could say, I am not working today. It's totally fine, totally correct, but I am off today sounds a little bit more natural. In addition, a lot of people who speak Russian and then learn English forget to put the to be verb with a lot of adjectives. So they might say, I tired or I bored, when you want to say I'm or I am tired or I am bored. And sometimes the learners just omit to be totally. So feel comfortable with to be, know when to use it. This, like with the verbs, these are important parts of learning English. Number 3, don't force the perfect tense. Now, a lot of students will want to say something in perfect tense when it didn't make sense to be in perfect tense. As a matter of fact, I had a student and I asked her one time, she kept on using perfect tense. And I asked her, why do you keep using perfect tense when it's not correct? And she said, I want to sound smarter. And that's when I realized the problem with perfect tense and as well simple tense. When we think of the word simple, we think easy. And I think a lot of learners think that simple tense means the easy tense. And that's not the case. That's just the name of it. Simple does not mean easy. Conversely, perfect also doesn't mean that it's perfect, that this is the best, absolute, perfect, flawless tense that there is. So I think that the wording and the naming of these tenses cause a lot of confusion. Now, of course, I teach American English, and I think that American English, not just because I'm American, but I think it's a lot easier when it comes to perfect tense. We really look at if an action is completed and it's in the past and you cannot change it. And basically, I tell my students, you have to go get a time machine to go back and change it. Then it's probably going to be a past tense situation. Otherwise, a present perfect or any type of present tense probably has something connected to now, focused on the action, not the result, like you hear a lot in British English. So don't try to use perfect tense too often, because there are times where we just don't use it. So for example, a lot of people might say, I have finished my homework yesterday. Okay, that would be incorrect. We would have to say, I finished my homework yesterday. And a lot of students think that if something was done recently, they don't think about the see the result part. They focus on the if this action was completed recently part. Now, recently is relative. If we're talking about the life of a fly, which I have one flying around here right now that I cannot get rid of, they might make a cameo appearance in this video. I don't know. If we're talking about a fly, the lifespan of a fly and what is considered something that just happened to them is significantly different than the development of the planet Earth. So, whether something just happened or happened very recently is all relative according to the time. And this is why I always recommend in American English, if you're learning American English, remember, if something finished in the past, just keep it in the past. Again, we're talking about actions. This is the best way to kind of think about that. Number 4, and I've harped on this before, and I'm going to do it again, focus on grammar more than vocabulary. I don't know what it is, but a lot of Russian students want to focus on advanced vocabulary that we do not use in English. And I do have a lot of students who use a lot of more advanced vocabulary when they actually speak. And while it's good that they're using it and learning it and knowing how it actually interacts with the sentence, interacts with other words around it, understand the collocations and whatnot, they're usually not words that we would say repeatedly or a number of times within even a conversation. We might say some of these words twice a year or something. But the problem is with a lot of students, particularly from Russia, they say, oh, well, I read Tolstoy and this, that, and the other. Okay, we don't do that in the United States, okay? If we have a book report that we have to do when we are in high school or whatever, if there's a movie, then we go ahead and just rent the movie and watch that. So, Gary Sinise and John Malkovich, thank you for Mice and Men. And by the way, John Malkovich, he was born literally 5 minutes away from where I am at right now. So that's kind of a little interesting fact of what redneck part of the woods I live in right now. But yes, we don't focus on literary works. We don't focus on advanced vocabulary. You want to focus on common vocabulary. This is the reason why I hate a lot of these videos that say, don't use this word, don't use that word, use this word instead, because they're actually teaching you words that, yes, a lot of them can be synonyms. Many of them, by the way, aren't. So they're actually teaching you incorrectly. But even though many of them could be synonyms, we wouldn't use them. And what happens is you get a lot of students who do what I call this plug and play approach. They take out a word, they change it to a more complex word, put it in there, and it actually sounds quite ridiculous. Now, on the other hand, if you want to sound more intelligent, you want to focus more on grammar. Now, I did make a video about what I think is the biggest mistake that English learners make, and it has to do with knowing less about the grammar and focusing so much on the vocabulary. So you want to really focus on common vocabulary that you're going to use on a daily basis. And yes, learn that advanced grammar, but you're not going to use it a lot. If you overuse it, you're going to sound like an arrogant dick. You're just going to sound that way. I'm just telling you that. And number 5 is not being wordy. Now, if you remember what I was talking about earlier, talking about how you need to look more at verbs instead of having things be nouns, you notice how in all of those sentences, we're able to reduce a lot of what we say. Now, as I mentioned in the last point about, Tolstoy and what we have of Mice and Men and all that, we aren't into this literary work. So we're not big into sounding eloquent and like some sort of drama teacher or something like that. Some people are, but for the most part, we're not. And so what happens is a lot of students who come from this literature-rich culture tend to use a lot more words to describe something than we do in English, okay? So for example, I might have somebody say, I had a terrible day at work today. What happened at work today? Let me tell you what happened at work today. Today, I got my finger caught in a blender, okay? So this is the kind of thing where you could just say, yeah, I went to work and got my finger caught in a blender. It sucked. Okay, so that's how we would normally speak when it comes to this. Now, another thing that you might want to remember, particularly about Americans, and this might help you internalize kind of how you should speak, is that we want things quick. That's why we have fast food. That's why we have things like McDonald's and Burger King and Starbucks and all that. We want things fast. We want things quick. We don't have time to wait. I remember when I lived in Russia, I had to wait for a bus for 10 minutes. I was getting pissed. I was mad. Whereas everyone around me is like, what the hell is wrong? It's just 10 minutes. No big deal. Now, this was in the middle of Murmansk in the winter. So yeah, maybe I was pushing it a little bit too much. But the point is that Americans are impatient. And so you can kind of think of that and transform your sentences into sentences that are a little bit more impatient. So when you're internalizing your English, think about how Americans are impatient. And we want to get through the sentences quickly. And you will even see people there like say, hurry up, are you almost done? Are you almost done, right? Because that's just how we are. We want to get to the point right away. We don't want to hear a long explanation when it comes to things. Just remember that. And yes, these are a few things that you can do to change the way in which you think about English. Now, I think all 5 are very important, but I do think the first 2 are the most important. And by the way, when we do numbers, I just noticed this in regards to Europe. I notice a lot of people in Europe will like go 2, 3, 4, and 5. That even seems weird. In America, we do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 as our 5th. So the way in which we count, when I see someone do 3 like this, it's not what we do. We just do this. So I don't know if that's considered rude in any place or whatever, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's also another number 1 I can give to people, some of the people in the comments in many of these videos, but that's not what we're talking about today. These things that we talked about can help you with your thinking process. If you make these transitions, think about things being more verb heavy and think about using the to be verb. Those 2 steps alone will drastically help you with your English, will drastically help you, especially that verb one. So I hope that this video helped you a little bit with kind of creating a mindset when it comes to learning English that will help you sound, I friggin' hate to say this, more like a native speaker. No, but will sound more, I guess, to my ears and to other people's ears, more natural. Okay. But thank you all very much. Remember to subscribe to the channel. If you like the information you got today, do a super like down below. And if you want to take a lesson with me, davesenglish.com. All right. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.